The moment the whispers started after that Nike incident, the real shock was not the flashing cameras, not the tense body language, not even the suddenly icy silence that seemed to follow them like a shadow. It was the claim now circling through every gossip corner that Prince Harry allegedly asked for space, and the even bigger question exploding behind it: what exactly happened when Meghan realized he may have wanted distance at the very moment the world expected them to look more united than ever? Because that is where this story turns from awkward public appearance into full-blown emotional mystery, the kind that makes people replay footage, zoom in on expressions, and dissect every half-second glance like it contains the final answer no one is allowed to say out loud. 1 minute, the image was polished, controlled, carefully presented. The next, the energy felt off. Not loud, not chaotic, just wrong in that quiet, unmistakable way that makes even casual watchers pause and say, wait, did you catch that? Did you see the shift? Did you feel the temperature drop? And once people started saying Harry reportedly wanted space after the New York fallout, suddenly every small detail began looking much bigger than it should have.
Harry usually introduces his wife. Not last night. And my God, the look she shot him. It's like, you just wait till we're back at home. They really hate each other now, and they cannot hide it anymore.
She was the villain.
How was she dangerous?
Because of the need for her to rehabilitate her image.
What makes this rumor so explosive is not simply the idea of space. Space can mean anything. Space can mean a few hours, a separate room, a separate mood, a need to breathe after a stressful public mess. But in royal gossip language, space is never just space. It becomes signal. It becomes warning. It becomes that one word everyone grabs because it sounds soft on the surface and devastating underneath. And if Harry did in fact asked for breathing room after a very public incident in New York, then the bigger drama is not what he said, it is how Meghan responded when that request landed. Because according to the reaction swirling around this whole episode, Meghan's response did not calm the chatter. It fueled it, raised eyebrows, sparked theories, sent people right back into clip analysis mode. Some say she looked irritated, others say she looked stunned, others insist she looked perfectly composed, which in celebrity scandal language only makes people more suspicious. Because when a moment is too composed, the audience assumes the real emotion is being buried just below the surface. And that is the dangerous zone where gossip becomes obsession. The place where every smile gets called strategic, every silence gets called deliberate, and every normal interaction suddenly gets recast as evidence of private tension.
I saw the simmering tension between the duplicitous Duke and his facelift-enhanced wife.
Meghan Markle is truly one of the most dangerous public figures on the world stage at the moment. She needs to be stopped.
And let's be honest, this is exactly why the story spread so fast. Not because anyone has confirmed some dramatic showdown behind closed doors, but because the narrative practically writes itself. A couple under constant scrutiny, a tense New York moment, a report that Harry wanted space, Meghan reacting in a way that viewers could not quite decode. It is the kind of sequence gossip culture lives for, because ambiguity is more addictive than clarity. If they had walked out laughing, no one would care. If they had openly looked upset, the mystery would be gone. But that strange in between, that carefully controlled uncertainty, that is what keeps the rumor machine fed for days. And once that machine starts moving, it drags old questions back into the spotlight too. People begin wondering whether New York was just one rough patch or whether it revealed something that had been building for longer. Was Harry exhausted? Was Meghan frustrated? Was the pressure of constantly managing public perception finally starting to show through the cracks? Or was this whole thing a giant overreaction built from one uncomfortable moment and 1,000 assumptions layered on top of it? That is the maddening part. Nobody on the outside knows for certain, yet everyone suddenly feels like a detective.
Meghan Markle's failed plan to bag a billionaire as her marriage to Prince Harry becomes more unhappy by the day.
She's already gotten the benefit of her bargain with Harry because she got the title. That's what she wanted. She wanted to be world famous. She wanted the title. You remember when Harry was single, he was the elephant. He was the one, the most eligible bachelor on earth. You could be a royal, you could become world famous famous overnight. You could live in a castle. You could have access to the crown jewels. You would be a princess. My God, yes, he could have had his.
Still, the reason this rumor feels unusually sticky is because it touches a nerve people already suspect exists. Harry has long been seen as deeply emotional, reactive, burdened by memory, by pressure, by the weight of image and expectation. Meghan, on the other hand, is often described by critics and admirers alike as intensely controlled, deliberate, highly aware of optics, and very capable of holding her shape under fire. So when a rumor appears suggesting Harry wanted space and Meghan's reaction seemed to catch attention, it instantly plugs into those existing public character narratives. He becomes the overwhelmed one, she becomes the unreadable one. Whether fair or unfair, that contrast is what makes the story feel cinematic. And cinema is exactly how this has been consumed. Not as a simple celebrity rumor, but as a scene. A turning point scene. The sort of emotional beat in a larger saga where the audience starts wondering whether two people are still moving in perfect sync or whether one of them has started walking just slightly ahead while the other slows down. No shouting necessary. No dramatic statement required. Sometimes all it takes is one reportedly requested pause and one reaction that looks just a little too careful for comfort.
See you in a bit. We'll see you upstairs. Hey, Harry, when you go upstairs?
See her face. You get him, mate. He just doesn't seem to give a damn.
What really sent eyebrows flying was the idea that Meghan may not have expected that request at all. Because if true, that changes the emotional balance instantly. A request for space is not just logistical. It can feel like rejection, like hesitation, like a quiet boundary suddenly being drawn where there used to be automatic closeness. And if Meghan's expression or behavior suggested even a flicker of surprise, discomfort, or annoyance, viewers would seize it immediately. They always do. Especially when the couple involved has spent years being watched, not merely for what they say, but for what their faces reveal when they think no one will notice. And the deeper this story sinks in, the more it stops being about one request for space and starts feeling like a crack that people are desperate to measure, to widen, to understand. Because once a narrative like this takes hold, it doesn't just stay in the present moment, it rewinds everything, reinterprets everything, and quietly asks, has this been building all along without anyone fully admitting it? Because look closely at how quickly the conversation shifted from what happened in New York to what has been happening behind the scenes, and suddenly that one reported moment where Prince Harry supposedly needed distance begins to echo far louder than it should, like a small sound in a quiet room that somehow reveals the entire structure is not as solid as it looked from the outside. And that is where Meghan's reaction becomes more than just a reaction, it becomes a clue, or at least people treat it like one, replaying it in their minds, trying to decode whether there was tension, whether there was control, whether there was something unsaid pressing just beneath the surface. Because here's what makes this so dangerously compelling. Nobody heard the conversation, nobody knows the exact words, and yet the silence around it is louder than any confirmed statement could ever be. When a story relies on absence rather than evidence, it invites imagination. And imagination, especially in the world of celebrity scrutiny, does not stay small. It expands. It fills in blanks. It creates entire emotional scenarios out of fragments. And suddenly, a simple idea like Harry asked for space morphs into something far heavier. Was he overwhelmed? Was he pulling back? Was he signaling something deeper without saying it out loud? And then, right at the center of that growing storm, Meghan's response sits like a locked box. Because if she appeared calm, people say she's controlling the narrative. If she appeared tense, people say she's reacting to pressure. If she appeared unaffected, people question whether something is being hidden. There is no winning position in that kind of spotlight, and yet it is exactly that impossible balance that keeps this story alive. Every version of her reaction becomes suspicious to someone. Every interpretation finds an audience ready to believe it. But what makes the entire situation feel even more charged is the timing. This did not happen in isolation. It happened in a moment when public attention was already high, when expectations were already loaded, when every appearance carried more weight than usual. So when something felt off, even slightly, it didn't pass unnoticed. It triggered a chain reaction. People started connecting dots that may or may not even belong together. They started asking whether Harry's need for space was a response to that specific incident, or whether it was a response to something that had been quietly intensifying long before New York ever entered the picture. And that is where the narrative turns from speculation into something almost cinematic again. Because now the audience is no longer just watching a couple, they are watching a storyline unfold in real time, trying to guess the next scene before it happens. Will there be more distance? Will there be a public display of unity that feels just a little too deliberate? Will there be silence that speaks louder than any appearance? These questions hang in the air because once a rumor introduces the idea of emotional space, every future moment gets filtered through it. And yet, beneath all the speculation, there is a quieter possibility that almost gets drowned out by the noise. What if this entire situation was nothing more than a human moment stretched beyond recognition? What if Harry, in the middle of pressure and scrutiny, simply needed a pause, something anyone would understand if it weren't happening under a microscope? And what if Meghan's reaction, whatever it truly was, has been magnified into something symbolic when it was actually just normal? That possibility exists, but it struggles to survive in a landscape where normal does not attract attention and subtlety does not go viral. Because in this world, tension sells, mystery spreads, and the idea of a perfect public partnership showing even the smallest sign of misalignment becomes irresistible. It feeds the narrative that behind the scenes, things are more complicated, more fragile, more unpredictable than the carefully managed image suggests. Whether that narrative is accurate or not almost becomes secondary to how powerful it feels once it takes hold. So now the story lingers in that unresolved space, the same kind of space Harry is rumored to have asked for, where nothing is fully confirmed, nothing is fully denied, and everything remains just ambiguous enough to keep people watching. Because the truth is, the moment itself may already be over, the conversation may already be resolved, but the perception of it is still unfolding, still evolving, still being shaped by every new interpretation that surfaces. And that is the real twist no one talks about directly. Once a moment like this escapes into public imagination, it no longer belongs to the people involved. It becomes a shared narrative, molded and remolded by countless voices, each adding their own version of what must have happened, what it must have meant, what it could mean next. And in that process, the original reality, whatever it actually was, gets buried under layers of speculation so thick that even if the truth were revealed, it might not satisfy the curiosity that has already grown beyond it. So the lingering question remains, hanging quietly but persistently over everything that followed that New York incident. Did Harry's reported request for space mark a fleeting emotional pause that has been exaggerated beyond recognition, or was it the first visible sign of a deeper shift that only revealed itself for a split second before being pulled back behind closed doors? Because until something clearer replaces this moment, that question will keep echoing, and every glance, every appearance, every silence will continue to be watched not just for what it is, but for what it might secretly be saying.